All right, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get underway here. Go ahead and drag my Mac practice window over here. All right, so today we are going to be talking about the schedule ability. The schedule ability is going to be where you will schedule your appointments, view your appointments, and also block out any non-appointment times, which we call transparencies. We will cover transparencies in a different mini class, so we will not be touching upon that today. But transparencies are basically how you be able to block off lunches, or if a resource or a provider is out for a meeting. Those are different ways that you can show that is with transparencies. So first to get started here, we will kind of just give a general overview of what we are looking at here, this entire window. So at the very top here, you're going to have the toolbar. And as you can see here, I have the schedule ability icon right here. So if you are a bit newer, abilities in Mac Practice are just basically going to be the different functions and the different options that you have to use the Mac Practice software. So we have the schedule ability here. There are other various abilities such as the patient's ability, attachments, you have references and reports, many different abilities within Mac Practice. If you do not happen to see the schedule ability on your toolbar here, what you can do is if you right click on the toolbar, go to customize toolbar, it will bring a drop down window here where you can locate the schedule ability icon, and you can click and drag it into wherever you would like onto the toolbar. And then once you have that on there, you can just click done and it will be on your toolbar there. Just kind of making your way down here. Below here is going to be what we call the patient selector. So this is going to be a way to look up a patient and schedule an appointment for them via this selector right here, if you would like to. What you do is if you click on that, click to select, it will bring up a search window. And there are many different ways which you can search for a patient. You can search obviously by their first or last name. You can also search by their phone number, their date of birth, their patient ID, or the primary or secondary guarantor on the accounts. So there are multiple different ways to search for a patient. So what you can do here is if you search for a patient, I'll just search a test patient here. You can find them and then click select, and then that will bring up their patient there. If you want to remove this from the patient selector so you're not focused specifically on this patient, you will just hit this X button right here and it will clear out your patient selector. Below here, you're going to have this side view right here. This is going to be what we call the sidebar. And you can kind of consider this to be like a table of contents for the schedule ability. Actually, all abilities in Mac Practice are going to have a sidebar. And then these folders that you see, or what we will call nodes, are going to change depending on which ability you are in Mac Practice. We will touch a bit on some of these specific folders here, but for right now, I just want to touch upon the appointments folder. The main reason this is really important is because this is going to be like the home of the schedule ability. So there are many aspects to the schedule ability. There are ways to change your appointment display. You can also look at forms via the schedule ability. But if you're actually just wanting to look at the schedule itself and schedule appointments or view what appointments are scheduled, you will want to be clicked on this appointments folder. If I were to click on, say, the resources folder here, which is going to be your vertical columns in the schedule. As you can see, this main area of the screen, or my display view, as we call it, is going to change to something completely different. And a lot of people, a lot of new users will think, well, if I just click on the schedule icon right here, it will take me back to what I would consider to be the home of the schedule. Unfortunately, you could click that as many times as you'd like. It won't take you back to that display view that you're looking for. So the main thing to see, if you are a bit confused as to what you are seeing here, if you're not seeing the schedule, you will actually want to click on this appointments folder right here, because that will bring the display view into play that you are wanting to see. Moving down here, we have this calendar right here that we call the small calendar. If you do not see this at the moment, that is because right below there is a icon right here for the small calendar that shows and hides the calendar. So if I were to click it right now, it is going to hide it. If I click it again, it will bring it back into view. And this is going to be the main tool that you will use to navigate the schedule in Mac Practice. So there are many different ways to navigate to different dates. For example, if I were to want to say just view January 16th, I could simply click on that date. And as you can see, my display view is going to change and is now set to January 16th. As you can see here, the current date is always going to be shown. The number will be kind of like highlighted with a red circle. And then whatever date you are currently showing in your display view here is going to be highlighted with this light blue square right there. So that's how you'll be able to tell the difference. If you want to get back to today, you can simply click on that date like so. Or if I'm on the 16th, what I can also do is I can hit this today icon right here, and I can click on that and it will take me to the current date. Some other ways to navigate within this small calendar right here. You can use the arrows on the left or the right of the month title up here to navigate in between the months. So if I wanted to view a date in March, for example, say March 18th, I can click on that and it will bring up March 18th. Say if I'm like 9 months out or something and I don't want to necessarily click through this, 9 different times to get back to January, again, I can click on this today icon and it will bring me back to the current day. There are some other different ways that you can change the view here in the schedule. So you can actually highlight multiple days and view multiple days, and there are a couple different ways in which you can do that. So a very common way that you can do is similar to highlighting a text on like a Word document or on a website. You can just click and drag over the desired days and you can view those. So say if I want to view from the 8th to the 14th and I let go, it is going to bring all those into view. So if you happen to be following along right now and doing it with me, you may notice that it'll look a bit different than what I have here. Mine is very scrunched up. That is going to be because I have the fit to view icon here selected. So what this does essentially is it scrunches up whatever selected days you have here in the small calendar, and it makes it so that you can view it all in one glance without having to scroll. So this can be really helpful if you are needing to view multiple days, if you need to schedule an appointment for a patient, but they give you like a range of, I'm free for the next 5 days. What do you have open for me? This is be a really nice way to view this here. So if I were to unclick this icon here with the 3 vertical columns, it is going to take off that fit to view, and it is going to make it so that I can scroll through the days if need be. If I click back on it, it'll scrunch it back up. There are other ways that you can choose to highlight days. Say if you have a patient coming in and they need to reschedule an appointment and they say they're only free on Fridays, what you can do is you can actually click on the weekday up here, and it's going to highlight all of that specific weekday that is in the view of the small calendar here. So as you can see, I have Friday, January the 3rd, all the way to February the 7th viewed here. Another thing I can do is I can do the same thing for the weeks. So say if a patient says they're free from the week of 13th to the 17th, I can click on W3 here and it's going to highlight from the 13th to the 17th for me, and I can see that all in one view. To the left and right of this today icon, there are going to be these arrows that will also allow you to select days as well. So what you can do here, if I were to press this right single arrow here, what it's going to do is it's going to add a day to the right of my current selected date range. It'll add that to the total range for me to view. And same thing will happen if I were to select the left arrow, it is going to highlight the 7th for me, and so on and so forth. I can continue to click this to highlight more days if I need to. These double arrows icons right here, what these are going to do is it's going to take into account how many days you have selected. And then if you press it, it is going to highlight the next consecutive amount of days. So if I were to click this right double arrow right here, it is going to highlight the next 5 days for me. If I were to click the double arrows that are pointing to the left, it is going to highlight those 5 previous days. So that's a couple different ways that you can highlight multiple days so that you can view exactly what times you have open and available for a patient. But as we all know, unfortunately, even patients' lives are very busy. They might not necessarily have 3 days off in a row where they can come in and schedule an appointment. Sometimes their lives might be really busy and they might only have availability on, say, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 23rd. And these are non-consecutive days. So how are we necessarily going to highlight all these and view these all at once? Well, there is a little bit of a trick that you can use to highlight all these. So what you will do is go ahead and select the first date that you're wanting to look at, which in this case is the 15th. And then if you hold down the command key on your keyboard, and then you select the other 2 dates, it is actually going to bring all of those into view for you so that you can view non-consecutive days. So this is going to be a really helpful tool to use if, like again, if you have those patients that are really busy and they don't have a lot of, availability and they only have these specific days, you can use that option of holding the command key and then selecting the specific days you need to view. You also do have these things right here. These are month tabs. So say that you're needing to schedule an appointment, maybe 6 months out is going to be a follow-up, for example. So we need to schedule them in July. Instead of clicking through this and going all the way to July, what we can do is just select the July 20 right here. And what it's going to do is it's going to take us to the month of July, and it's going to take us to whatever number day that we had selected in our display view prior. So in our case, I was on January 8th, so it took me to July 8th there. And again, I am pretty far out from the current day. I can just hit this today icon and it will bring me back to the current day here. So that's going to be basically most of the tips and tricks for navigating the schedule itself. Next thing I want to show you is how to actually schedule an appointment. All right, so when it comes to scheduling an appointment, again, one thing to keep in mind is to always make sure you are on this appointments folder, because this is going to be where you can actually do that scheduling. So what I will recommend to most people is to clear out their patient selector here, so that way it doesn't automatically think that it's going to be associated to whatever patient you have selected here. So I would say as a rule of thumb to just clear that out with that X button as it's shown there. But the way to schedule an appointment is you can simply click on where you believe the start time to be. So say we need to schedule an appointment from 1:30 to 2:30 for Dr. Purdue here. So what I can do here is if I click on 1:30, I can drag down. So I still have my mouse clicked on here, and as you can see, it is showing me a couple different bits of information. At the very top, it's going to be showing me the start date of the appointment. At the bottom, it will show me the end time, I should say, the start time, the end time. And then in the middle, it's going to give me the duration of the appointment and then also the resource that is listed under. Once I lift off of my mouse, it is going to pull up an appointment creation window. Here is when you will want to go ahead and search for your patient. So what I typically recommend is going to automatically default so that it starts with the last name and the first name field. So what you can do is if you have an existing patient, you can type their name here. And what you do is hit the tab on your keyboard and then type their first name as well. And the nice thing about this is that this is a relaxed search. So once I hit tab out of here, what it's going to do is it's going to use a first and last name search and is going to look for an existing patient here. So again, if you don't, have a patient's spelling memorized, you can simply type in the letters in those fields, hit tab out, and it's going to look for any matching characteristics there. So as you can see here, we do have 2 existing patients under that name. I will go ahead and select one of those. And what it will do is I can then click save and it will pull in that patient's information. However, let's say that I don't see my patient's name here. This is actually a new patient. So what will happen, actually, I'll go ahead and go back out here and we'll tab in again. Since I don't have a patient selected and I haven't decided yet that the patient that I am seeing is in the database, it is going to have this create new patient option selected here. So you actually do have the option of creating an entirely new patient account from the scheduling ability if needed. What we'll do here is we'll make an appointment for a existing patient. So I will select this test account here. And as you can see, once I selected that test account, that create new patient option became unchecked. So I'll go ahead and click save, and it's going to pull in some of my patient information here. So as you can see here, it pulled in the patient ID, it also pulled in the sex, and then also some other information. It looks like this account didn't have too much demographic information, but what it will do is it will actually pull in any of this information as it's entered in their patient account. So to kind of incorporate this into the workflow of scheduling for a patient, a lot of times you may be, for example, verifying a phone number, different things like that, verifying an email. What you can do here is you can actually edit these fields. So say if you had just a number here, and that was their phone number, and you run that by them, and they say, actually, that's wrong, my number, is different now. What you can do here is you can actually enter that edited number, and then once you save this appointment, it will actually edit the information on their patient account. So what you can do here is kind of kill two birds with one stone, and you can simultaneously schedule an appointment while also updating their records. Again, you can do the same thing with work phone or home phone, same thing with email as well. Below here, you're going to have a couple different fields pertaining to the appointment itself. First one here is going to be the appointment type. So the appointment type is going to be more or less the why, like why are they here? What are they here for? So we have a couple different examples here. They could be in for cleaning, for hygiene. It could be a follow-up or recall. We'll just say that this is we'll say it's a checkup, for example. Next, we're going to have an appointment status. So the appointment status is going to be more like the where we are at in the appointment. So basically, where are we at in the process of getting them in here? Are they checked in? Are they ready to go back? You know, different things that you can choose in here. Is the appointment tentative? Did they miss the appointment? Obviously, we're scheduling an appointment from the jump. So we probably want to set this to maybe like pending or confirmed, different things like that. Below here, you're going to have your provider. This is going to be who is actually seeing the patient. So you can choose whichever provider here that's actually going to be seeing them but performing any treatment. And then here you will have an option for a recall. Depending on what malpractice you have, if you have DDS or MD, it will differ between whether it says follow-up or recall, but they do mean the same thing. Here you'll be able to go in and tie any follow-ups or recalls if need be. And then you also do have an option to enter any notes as well. So this can be really used for anything. A common example we'll see, especially if you were to do it for a new patient, is you could put check insurance card, because we obviously wouldn't have that on file yet. So what you can do is you could put that in the notes here. So if I were to put that in there, and I'll go ahead and actually save the appointment, and it's going to create the appointment there. If I were to double click on this really quick, you will see that the notes are still retained there. So for example, if we see them, in the future, if we double click on this to change the status or whatever, you can go ahead and actually read the notes, refer to those, and then you can, check their insurance card as needed, for example. So that's going to be how you schedule an appointment for an existing patient. Next thing I'd like to show you is how to actually schedule an appointment for a new patient. So same process, you will go ahead and make sure your patient selector is cleared out right here. And then you will click and drag on the schedule, lift up to create that appointment and get that window down. And then what you can do here is, if you don't have it here, you can actually enter their last and first name as it is. So I'll just go ahead and I'll just type in a bunch of gibberish here. So let's just say that's their name. And then once I tab out, it's going to show here that it doesn't find any matches even after a relaxed search. So even when it's taking into account like misspelling or anything, it's not finding anything close to similar. So it's going to assume that we're wanting to create a new patient. So as you can see here, it is going to have that checkbox checked here. So I will go ahead and click save if need be. There also is an option to add to an existing account. Some offices, not all offices will do this, but some will have like a mother-daughter account, or like a husband-wife account. It's like a joint account where they're all under the same account. So you can actually click add to existing account, and then you can find a patient to associate to that account. We'll just go ahead and create it as just a new individual account. And then what you can do here is then you can go ahead and grab their phone number or any other demographic information here, enter it, and it will save to their patient account, which you can view in the patient's ability. And then again, you can set your type, your status, anything like that, and then go ahead and save the appointment. So there you go. You not only created an appointment for the new patient, you've actually created an account within the MacPractice database for that patient. All right, so one last thing I'd like to go over is going to be how to reschedule an appointment. So basically what I want to touch upon here is the fact that the MacPractice schedulability is very, very forgiving. It is very understanding towards user error, because it happens to all of us. We'll put an appointment in the wrong spot, or we'll schedule for the wrong time or for the wrong resource. Thankfully, it is very forgiving. So what we can do here is, say, for example, we messed up on this appointment. We actually needed to start at 2. It goes from 2 to 3. What I can do is I can simply click on the appointment and drag it down, and I can move it into place. I'm going to get this alert here that asks me if I want to reschedule the appointment. It's going to give you what currently the resource name, date, and time is. What you'll mostly want to pay attention to is going to be the new resource name, date, and time, because that is what you will be changing it to. So once you verify that's all correct, you can click reschedule, and it will move that appointment down there. But let's say we actually, maybe put it on the wrong day, actually. It's actually supposed to be on Thursday. So what we can do here is we can utilize our skills that we learned prior with navigating the small calendar. So if I were to actually click on this right single arrow, highlight the 9th here, I can actually click and drag this appointment all the way over to the next date, like so. Again, I'm gonna make sure to verify the second set of information here, make sure it looks all good. Go ahead and hit reschedule, and I can move the appointment over like that. Unfortunately, you may be thinking that might not work all the time, and that would be maybe because, say, I actually maybe scheduled it in the wrong month even. So maybe it's actually supposed to be on February 9th. I don't know what I'm doing today apparently. So say I need to move it all the way over. Well, that won't necessarily help us with the tricks that we know because, we don't see February 9th here. So what we can do actually, there are other ways that you can reschedule an appointment. So if you right click on the appointment, you can actually choose to make this different statuses. For example, you can set it to canceled, missed, or to reschedule. We'll mostly just touch upon to reschedule, but I will explain what these mean more or less. Canceled is supposed to mean basically they gave you some sort of notice that they cannot come into the appointment. They called and canceled that appointment with you. Missed is more meant to show that they gave you no notice. They straight up just missed it. They didn't show up. They're MIA. Then to reschedule, this can kind of be used depending on how your office sees fit, but this is mainly with the idea that they do plan on rescheduling this appointment at some time. So what I can do is I can set this appointment to reschedule, and it is actually going to take it off of the schedule here. What will happen, let me get a quick refresh, is this to reschedule folder right here, that appointment will actually drop into that folder right there. So as you can see, I have the appointment right there. And then what I can do now is I can navigate over to February, let's just say it was the 10th. I didn't know 9th was on a Sunday. Let's say it's on the 10th here where we need to move it. What we can do is we can actually click and drag this line item right here out of the to reschedule folder and put it where it needs to be. Drop it there. Again, we're going to make sure to verify the second set of information, make sure the resource, date, and time looks good, and then we can click on the to reschedule there. So that's another way. Again, MacPractice is really forgiving here. If you do make an error with scheduling an appointment, there are lots of ways to rectify that and make sure that it looks accurate on the schedule. So you can use the small calendar to navigate and fix that. Or again, if you right click, you can set this to a different status here. And then once it moves to that folder, you can then click and drag it over back onto the schedule. There's also another way to change that status if need be. You can just double click on the appointment and change it here if need be. And you can also go in here and edit any of this information if need be. So if we need to go in and edit the type for whatever reason, we can do that as well. And as you can see here, one thing I would like to point out really quick is as you can see here, even though I took it off the schedule and put it into that to reschedule folder, it still retained the notes from that original appointment that I had scheduled. So that's the really nice thing is that even if you marked it as missed or canceled, all the notes, if you were to reschedule that appointment, will still be preserved with that appointment.